Welcome back to Couch Casual, where today we're going to be previewing the New England Patriots for the 2025 season. If you're new, make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the like button if you enjoy this video, and let's get into the video. So starting off with their additions and losses, one of the few teams that made a head coaching change. Patriots are bringing in Mike Vrabel, former Tennessee Titans head coach. Their DC is going to be Terrell Williams, and they're bringing Josh McDaniels as their offensive coordinator. Vrabel, as a head coach in Tennessee, he had some pretty good success there. They had some playoff runs when it was Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, Ryan Tannehill. McDaniels, his OC, who was the head coach for the Raiders for, I think, in 2023 and 2022. Honestly, in 2022, as an offense, the Raiders were pretty good under McDaniels. Not as good in 2023. I definitely think the talent got a little worse. Terrell Williams was a run coordinator for the Lions last year, I believe. And he was honestly one of the better D-line coaches. At least that's what Dan Campbell said. So hopefully they can fix their run defense, which was pretty bad last year. So hopefully Terrell Williams coming in there as their defensive coordinator should improve the run game. And offensively, Josh McDaniels, very run heavy, which can be helpful with Drake Maye's rushing ability. So that's pretty much a little breakdown of the new coaches they added. Some of the players they brought in, you obviously got Stephon Diggs, who he was off to a pretty good start with Houston before he got injured. And then his previous years with Buffalo, he made a Pro Bowl, I think 4 years in a row, including his most recent healthy season. So he should be very good for the Patriots and being Drake Maye's number one weapon and his first really good weapon. They also bring in Mac Hollins, who played with Buffalo last year. He was solid, nothing spectacular, just a good depth receiver. They bring in Will Campbell, with their first round draft pick out of LSU. Obviously a little bit on the smaller side, but I really like Campbell. I think he was the top tackle. Doesn't have the size, like I said before, but he can really use his quickness and sort of use that size to his benefit. They also bring in Morgan Moses, who again was just a solid tackle with the Jets, nothing crazy. Same with Garrett Bradbury, who was a center. They brought him in. And that was they spent not a lot of money on the O-line, but they added a lot of pieces to the O-line. I mean, their O-line was tied for 9th last year in sacks allowed, so it's good to redo that O-line. And they didn't even lose anybody notable on their O-line. They just brought people in. Well, they did lose David Andrews, who retired, but he didn't really play much for them last year due to injury. So in terms of comparing this year to last year, they just added to the O-line, which was pretty bad. So I like that they did that. They bring in Travion Henderson, a rookie from Ohio State. I really like him. I think he will solidify himself as the number one running back. We'll get into that a little bit later, but I really liked him out of Ohio State, him and Quinshon Judkins. Milton Williams is their big splash. They gave him a big contract, a long-term contract as well. And I don't know if he's the highest paid D tackle in the league. I don't think he is, but I'm pretty sure he's up there because they gave him a massive contract. I mean, it was worth it. He had a sort of a breakout year with the Eagles last year, especially in the playoffs and the Super Bowl. Very good pass rushing interior D lineman, or just D lineman in general. Speaking of D lineman, they also bring in Kyrie's Tonga. He hasn't really played much in his career, but he's projected to be their starting nose tackle, at least with these unofficial depth charts. And then they bring in Harold Landry from the Titans. Now, stat-wise, he's had good production in terms of, sacks. But he hasn't really had a ton of, pressures and, pass rush wins. Obviously, I'm pretty sure he's more like a run stopper anyway. So, I don't know about the Harold Landry pickup. However, the Robert Spillane pickup, I really like the Robert Spillane pickup. He was very good for the Raiders. And then the Carlton Davis pickup, He was pretty decent for the Lions last year. But overall, Patriots had a ton of money to spend in the offseason, and they spent it. They did not shy away at all from trying to upgrade this team and maximize the window of Drake Maye being on his rookie deal. And honestly, when you look at who they lost in free agency, they clearly got better as a team. Jacoby Brissett, I mean, he's a solid backup, but with Drake Maye being the guy for the entire season, like that's the plan, I imagine, is for him to start the entire year. You don't need Brissett as much when you wanted to not start Maye right away. Brissett's a good quarterback to have, but with Maye being the number one guy, you don't really need Brissett. Dietrich Weiss, he didn't play much for them last year. He was okay, solid in the reps he did get, or the playing time he did have, but only started 5 games. David Godchow and Daniel Acule, probably mispronouncing that. They both started pretty much every game last year, and they were pretty good in their starts. But I think Milton Williams is an upgrade over both of those, and Kyrie's Tonga is probably a downgrade from those two, but honestly, it could just be that he hasn't played much, and maybe he just needs an opportunity. Juwan Bentley, he's been very productive in his career, but he was hurt last year. So last year compared to this next season, it may not be that big of a loss, but maybe in general, they might have a hard time replacing. But I think Robert Spillane will do that perfectly. And then they lost Sion Takitaki at linebacker. His role with the Patriots is short. Well, I don't think with the Patriots. I think he's played on multiple teams. It's sort of shrunk over time. Like he's got less and less opportunities. So again, Robert Spillane, I think clear upgrade over those two. And then Jonathan Jones, he is an older corner, and he has definitely slowly regressed. Still a good corner, don't get me wrong, but definitely you can see the age catching up to him. I think Carlton Davis, based on the trajectory maybe Jones is going down, was an upgrade. But yeah, overall, again, as I said before, they spent a lot of money. When you look at who they added compared to who they lost, I think it was a clear win for the Patriots offseason in terms of like starters. But now let's look a bit more into their offense. But before we look at their offense, again, if you're enjoying the video, make sure to leave a like. And if you're new, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss more content over here. Looking at the offense for the Patriots, they were 30th in points scored last year. They had a pretty bad passing attack. Obviously, Drake Maye didn't play the whole season, and he had his usual rookie ups and downs, especially when you're in a bad situation like he was. Their run offense was pretty okay with Gibson and Ramondre Stevenson. Looking at their quarterback room, obviously led by Drake Maye last year. Didn't play the whole season. He started about halfway through. Wasn't perfect, but it also wasn't terrible. And then when you look at the situation that he was in with no line, no help, not even the best coaching, he showed lots of flashes and lots of promise considering the situation, and he still ended up making the Pro Bowl. Obviously, he wasn't like an initial Pro Bowler, but he still made the team, so it was still a good season nonetheless for Drake Maye. Running backs, now Ramondre Stevenson has been the guy there for a while. He's been a consistent running back for them, nothing crazy, but nothing too bad either. But I was doing research, and I think I came across an interview clip that this could be wrong, that they might not even use Ramondre that much this year, which could mean that Travion Henderson might actually end up starting as the number one running back. Not quite sure. But regardless, I do think Travion Henderson will surpass Ramondre Stevenson for that number one running back spot. First of all, Travion is he probably is the best blocking running back in the draft. And I would go to say that he might already be one of the better run blocking or pass blocking running backs in the league already. And while he wasn't like the most elusive running back at Ohio State, definitely not compared to Quinshon Judkins, he still was elusive enough to get past defenders. So I do think Travion Henderson will surpass Ramondre, but I do think Ramondre will still go ahead of Antonio Gibson in the depth chart. But I do expect a big season out of Travion Henderson. Looking at the O-line now for the Patriots, again, as I mentioned before, they were tied 9th in most sacks allowed, so not that good of a year. But they bring in Will Campbell, they bring in Garrett Bradbury, they bring in Morgan Moses as starters, and you also got Jared Wilson, who they took in the 3rd, I believe, out of Georgia, and Wes Schweitzer, who they brought in from the Jets. So they definitely overhauled this O-line, which is good because it wasn't that good last year. I really like Campbell, as I said before, and I really like Cole Strange. Now, He's had a small sample size because of injury, but in his sample size, he's been a very good pass blocker, if I'm not mistaken. And in the 3 games he had last year, he didn't allow a single sack, at least according to PFF. And he only had 2 penalties. Now, he is a free agent this year, so this is a big year for Cole Strange, getting that starting job and being probably planning on playing the whole season. So it'll be a big year for him in a contract year. But overall, guys like Bradbury, Morgan Moses, Mike Onwenu, they're just solid players, nothing crazy. Should be an improvement over what they had last year. And if you get an improvement in the O-line, I think Drake Maye will be very happy about that. Now looking at the receivers and tight ends, obviously we mentioned Stephon Diggs and Matt Collins. You also got Demario Douglas, Pop Douglas. I really like Douglas. I'm a big fan. And hopefully he gets a lot more reps and targets than he had last year. He only started like 7 games last year, so I hope that goes up. It should, considering he's the number 1 slot guy. Kayshon Boutte hasn't necessarily put it all together so far to start his career, but you definitely saw something last year when he actually got like a real opportunity and when he saw the field a lot. You saw his production, his stats go up. So I still think he can be a good receiver. Kendrick Bourne, he's been hurt a little bit recently, like the last year or two, and isn't quite as good of a receiver as he once was, especially on San Francisco. But he can still be a very good 4th, 5th receiver. And then Kyle Williams is their backup slot guy, or backup to Demario Douglas from Washington State. I really like Kyle Williams. Very good deep ball guy. Very good after the catch as well. So I expect him to get a lot of reps in and maybe even surpass Boutte or Bourne as that 4th guy amongst the receivers. And then looking at the tight ends, I mean, it's mainly just Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry had a very good year with his first year with New England, and since then he's just been solid tight end, nothing spectacular. But he's not a guy that's like, he's not a liability at tight end. You can rely on Hunter Henry. He'll get you some good production. So overall, very overhauled offense, bringing in, just based off of the starters in this depth chart, they added 5 starters as well as a guy like Travion Henderson and Kyle Williams and others. So they really overhauled this offense. Drake Maye's first year, I think it could be a very successful offense under Josh McDaniels. Now looking at the defense here for New England. First looking at their D-line, obviously Milton Williams, their big pickup. We talked about him earlier. One of the better D-linemen in football. Kyrie's Tonga hasn't gotten too much, but he's now going to be their starting nose tackle. Alongside those two, you have Christian Barmore. Barmore hasn't seen a ton of time so far in his career, being a second-round pick with, just guys starting above him and injuries and whatnot. But he, as you can see, he is their, in this unofficial depth chart, he's their number 1, or he's a starting D lineman for him in their 3-3 defense. So I hope to see him improve. But if he doesn't have a great year, they did draft Joshua Farmer out of the 4th round from Florida State. Really liked him going into the draft. So I think he could potentially take a guy like Barmore's spot. But honestly, Milton Williams alone can get you a ton of production. And then you got the 2 linebackers, pass rusher types. Already talked about Harold Landry. Anthony Jennings, he was solid last year, nothing too crazy. Solid pass rusher. So they have like the pass rushing linebackers. Now looking at the actual like off-ball linebackers, Christian Ellis. I really like Christian Ellis, pairing him next to Robert Spillane. Last year, Ellis only started 5 games, and he played 16 games and started 5 of them. He had 80 tackles. He got a sack. He got an interception. He had pass deflections, and he's only like 25 years old. So I think in this improved role next to Robert Spillane, I think Christian Ellis can have a great year with New England. And then they also got Jelani Tavai, who has been a very good linebacker the last 2 years with New England. And then you also got guys like Keon White and Jack Gibbons who are okay. Then the corners, I think the secondary can be very good. I mean, their pass defense was very good last year, and I think they got better in the secondary. Bringing in a guy like Carlton Davis, replacing a older, aging Jonathan Jones. You got Kyle Duggar, who's been good. You got Jabril Peppers, who was hurt last year, but when he is healthy, he's very good. We all know how good Christian Gonzalez is, one of the better corners in the league. And then Marcus Jones has also been very good. And I really like Craig Woodson, too, out of Cal. I like what he can do, and maybe he can get some good reps. And Marcus Epps isn't a bad free safety either. They brought him in from the Raiders. But the secondary, as I mentioned before, was very good. At least passing yards allowed, they were good. So I think they could be even better with the addition of Carlton Davis. And the run defense was their weakness, but I think bringing in... I guess Milton Williams isn't necessarily known for his run defense. He's more of a pass rusher. But I think a guy like Robert Spillane can really improve your run defense, and even a guy like Harold Landry. So I think their run defense should get better slightly, especially with Mike Vrabel and Terrell Williams. It should get better. But I think their pass defense will be the strength for them. Quick look at their special teams. Borregales, their rookie kicker. They brought him in from Miami. Very good kicker at Miami, so we'll see how he does in his rookie season. And then I don't really have too much to say about their return men. Not too familiar. I know. And then Bryce Behringer, they took him in the 6th round last year. Decent punter. Not too familiar with the Patriots special teams, I'll be honest. Now, looking at their schedule, and we're going to give our floor, ceiling, and prediction. Now, going into this schedule, the Patriots, based on win percentage, have the 3rd easiest schedule in the league, and their win total is actually set at 8.5. I think I saw from one betting odds place. That seems a little high, maybe more like 7.5, but 8.5 potentially is their win total for this season. When you see that they have a 3rd easiest schedule, and you can just tell, you play the Raiders, you play the Panthers, you get 3 straight games against the Saints, Browns, and Titans, you play the Jets twice, you play the Giants, and the Patriots, I think, have shown that they can beat teams like the Dolphins and the Bills every once in a while. So I think their floor, when you can factor in, I think you factor in games like the Saints, Titans, Browns, the Jets, and then maybe another division game. I think their floor is at about 5 wins. I think I'm a little lower maybe on the Patriots, because sometimes I feel like spending just a bunch of money to spend money, it can be good and maybe it can not be good. I think they get good players, don't get me wrong. But you're bringing in so many new pieces, you're not quite sure how it's all going to work out. So I think they could have a lot of variation in how their season could go. But talking about their ceiling, games that are around in the 50-50 range, you got to add the Raiders in there, the Panthers, probably the Giants, and then maybe another division game or two. And that puts their ceiling at about 10 wins for me. And that means their final prediction is either 7 or 8 wins. I know I said I'm a little lower on them, so I am going with 7 and 10 as their final prediction, but I could easily see them getting 8 wins or even 9, just based on how easy the schedule is, and if all the pieces they add together fit well and play well together, they could easily get way more than 7 wins. But I'm being a little cautious here for the Patriots, and I have them at 7 and 10. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like. Let me know in the comment section some of your thoughts on the Patriots' upcoming season. And if you enjoyed this video and you don't want to miss more and you want to see more content over here, make sure to subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.